Let's bring in the professor. I don't know if he was involved. Were you watching NBA action last night, Professor?
Okay, Lubie and I have had this discussion. This whole South Florida thing that is deeply ingrained, we're like supposed to have these vicious, hated rivalries with the New York teams, is the most pointless freaking thing in the history of sports rivalries. Like, what's the point of hating the New York Jets? It's like hating the Jerry's kids. Like, they're this super loser franchise that haven't done anything since Joe Namath was there. You want to hate the Yankees, fine. There's no point in hating it. The Knicks have had like one moment ever, and it was in what, 1971?
73, yeah.
73, literally 52 years ago. Come on, they had Ewing for 20 years, and they sucked the whole time. The one time they got into the finals, they got smoked by a Houston team that was literally like Hakeem Olajuwon and 4 guys from the YMCA. Like, want to hate the Patriots? I mean, that's like hating Russia. Like, you should. If you want to hate the Celtics, yeah, they've got like 97,000 banners. Jason Tatum's probably the most annoying personality in the history of the NBA, just because he wants to be the star that he's not so badly. It's just like you could smell the pick-me coming off of Jason Tatum. You want to hate those teams? Cool, go ahead and hate those teams. But like this weird thing in South Florida where our rivals or whatever team is from New York is so freaking pointless.
The time.
Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Very pleasant. Good morning, everybody. Good to be with you here on this Tuesday. Jeff DeForest, and we got Mike Lubitz, and I'm glad you're donning the Croatia shirt. I was wearing that thing yesterday. Gets like one thumbs up from the people I pass. I pass probably 50, 60 people on my walk of life going each direction, and every now and then I have still those 250 fully vaccinated shirts that Marty the Party Sachs, and I were unable to unload. I wear those sometimes because there's not much other use for them at this point. And I was wearing a Croatia shirt. I got one woman mumbling something to me in Croatian. I think that was the language she was speaking. I would have no idea. But nonetheless, good to see it. You look great in red there, Lubie. And you should be seeing red after last night because, well, there's so many things. I love it when the experts, the odds makers, and especially the chalk players are snorting lines of cyanide off the tabletop there, off a little mirror, and trying to figure out how the bleep did I end up losing every game. Amazing. It was a 3-dog night, Lubie, a 3-underdog night. Money line. Can you say money line? I was trying to calculate the parlay. I didn't get around to all of the odds, but the New York Knicks were overwhelming underdogs on the money line to the Boston Celtics last night. Do you know that you were getting 3-1 on that Knicks game if you bet the Knicks money line?
Really?
You were getting 9 points. You were getting plus 310, and the Knicks are down 20, and you're probably thinking about where's the nearest pier? I just want to jump off. How the hell could I ever believe in this team? And they bounce back. A record for futility is another thing that's among my favorite observations in sports. And you saw the Boston Celtics, who chuck up the most threes. I believe that's a true stat, is it not? Do they not toss up the most threes of any team in the league?
I mean,
So it's been a successful formula for them. But last night it certainly wasn't. 15 of 60, Lubie. 15 of 60. You know what's weird about that number? And how are you, by the way? How's everything? I know you were out there with a little Cinco de Mayo celebration, but it was kind of soggy. I don't know. Was that supposed to be an outside event?
It was, but as South Florida proves true, we fought on, and
Oh, yeah?
it was a lot of fun. I think eventually they got the block party going because it always stops raining here. But it was a good time there, and it was an interesting night last night. It's the most satisfied I felt after a loss for one of my teams in a long time. Like the Panthers game was back and forth enough where, yeah, they got down and yeah, they lost, but at least they showed the kind of fight that we've become accustomed to with this team. And Bobrovsky had one of those Bobrovsky games, so they will have to fight on. And the NBA games were everything I could have asked for with the result.
Yes. Except I don't know who you despise more, the Knicks or the Celtics. I'm going to go with Knicks with you. Just judging by, I mean, anybody that watches the program can tell that you're not much of a fan of any New York team, as the professor alluded to, which he's absolutely right. What is the point of hating New York teams if you live here? I know Are people from New York moving down here? Is it the old expatriate thing where everybody here is from New York? I don't think that's the case anymore, Lubie. As we reside here in South
Slowing up.
Florida,
It's slowing up.
it was a natural. The problem in the past was most of the South Florida teams, except for the Dolphins, were all relatively new. And you had the Heat came around in 1988. The Marlins started out in '93, and I'm going to say the Panthers same year, or yeah, '93, because their third season. Which, by the way, on Bleacher Brothers, this turned out great, Luby. Doug McClain, our conversation with Doug McClain yesterday. Well, what a great guy. And I can't believe it was 30 years ago, or just about 30 years ago, that the Florida Panthers made their run as a third-year expansion team to the Stanley Cup final. And they mowed down Philadelphia. They mowed down the Boston Bruins. They mowed down the Pittsburgh Penguins with Lemieux and Yager. And recounting some of those episodes was absolutely fantastic with Doug McClain, who had a brilliant theory also about how Toronto could win the Stanley Cup. And of course, it relates to politics, which we don't like to delve into too heavily here on our Bleacher Brothers Sports Show. We just want to have a good time. We don't want to get all aggravated and start choosing sides or whatever. And there's such a divide that I don't know that it's even worth exploring anymore. No one's convincing people on either side that they're right or wrong. Anyway, he said, though, that the one thing that Toronto should petition the Prime Minister of Canada to impose massive tariffs on the Stanley Cup, since the Stanley Cup is a property of Canada. And that would be a condition that would allow Toronto to win the Cup because, or mandate that they did, because they would not allow the Cup to leave their country.
Yeah.
So it would work. But yeah, Toronto, they have choking tendencies. We've seen this over the years, and even in the first round of the playoffs, there was a pretty strong chance that they were going to gag to the Ottawa Senators. The Panthers handled their business like they were seriously going to make another run to the third straight Stanley Cup final and maybe go back-to-back defending their championship. And the Panthers started out ice cold in that game. Was that the rest versus rust theory? Where you got the rest. I would think rest would be a huge advantage in the NHL. Especially if you look at the games last night, all three teams that played the most recently ended up winning. As Boston was on the pines there since Game 5, the Knicks had to go into a sixth game against the Detroit Pistons. The Denver Nuggets had just fought a 7-game series against a very good Clipper team that a lot of the wise guys thought was going to be a significant contender to knock off Oklahoma City and maybe even emerge from the West. Denver being largely overlooked. They had turmoil at the end of the year. They fired their coach, their general manager. We never really got to the bottom of what that story was all about. And yet all three teams that were in the most recent games ended up prevailing last night. So I don't know what that does for that theory. Probably nothing. But nonetheless, it's one that you're going to hear bantered about all throughout the playoffs. Couldn't have asked for much more. I'll get your thoughts on this Knick game. They're down 20. Pretty much had thrown in the towel. You're not, Lubie, if you were a Knick fan. I know Andy is a big Knick fan, one of our frequent contributors here on the chat line. He's already up and running with us. And you wouldn't have given 2 cents for their chances. But my new theory on gambling, Lubie, is wait till your team is down with an impossible, insurmountable deficit and then bet the crap out of them.
Yeah, I wonder if Vandy, because he's a big in-game bettor, I wonder if he went for it at down 20. He probably could have made a nice score.
This in-game betting is the way to go. And bet in-game at the most impossible to conceive of situations. Once that occurs, and you have to be patient in your in-game betting if you're going to use that theory, because being down 10 is not enough anymore in the NBA.
Yeah.
Look at the Denver game. I mean, they looked to be hopelessly out of it the whole game. Did it not appear that Oklahoma City was in command in that ball game all the way through the fourth quarter, in spite of an amazing performance by Nikola Jokic? 42 points, 22 rebounds by this cat. And yet he was on the bench with about 10 seconds to go. He was not going to be out there on the floor except, and was this a mistake on the part of Oklahoma City, where they ended up with no timeouts left? Denver would not have been able to reinsert Jokic into the ballgame, except they committed a foul. And so that was the equivalent of a timeout, and they got Jokic back into the game. Now, it was Gordon who made the game-winning shot, but it didn't hurt him any to have Jokic on the floor. That's a veritable certainty. So let's start with the Knicks. And the only thing I could think of, Lubie, is just all night long I'm yelling, break!
Yep.
Oh, my God. Taylor, two halves in that one also, as the Boston Celtics were out front 61-45 at halftime, looking every bit like a winner. And they lose the second half 55-39 by an equal number of points, 16 points. And then lose in overtime. 108-105 was the final there in overtime. Brunson, Mr. Clutch, who actually was very much clutch until that final shot, which I don't know. You can't really be too critical of that. Where he tried to bank a little floater there from the left side with 5 seconds to go. I guess they were down to 1 second at that stage, and it just misses, or he wins the game in overtime. You talk about adding to your legacy and reputation as a clutch ball player. But held up well in OT. The Knicks opened up 6, ended up winning by 3. And so they're up 1-0 on the Boston Celtics. What does that do for you, Lubie? What did you take away from that one?
Look, like I said, going into this series, I can't stand both teams. So it's tough for me. What I will say is hearing all the Boston fans and all the media say it's going to be like a 5-game series pushed me in the Knicks direction, because I've said from the beginning, I think this is going to be a tough series. I think the Celtics will win, but I think the Knicks play a tough brand of basketball, and Brunson has become a guy that you can't count out at the end of games, that the Knicks are going to push the Celtics. So when the Celtics got out to the big lead, I was like, yeah, whatever. They'll take game 1. It is what it is. To see the Knicks fight back was very interesting, and it's what we've seen from them. I mean, they don't go away. I just don't know how much, if they have enough star power to take home a title, but they have enough power to push this Celtics team that hasn't been pushed in 2 years. And that's the problem for the Celtics, and that's what's wrong with the Celtics fans, is they don't get it. They put their team in this like pantheon of greatness. They're not. They've just had one of the easiest routes over the last 5 series anyone has ever had in playoff history. Like, they didn't face any number 1 last year, and they missed a couple number 2 players in every series. Then this year, they got a Magic team that's not a playoff. I mean, the Magic, to me, were the worst team going into, even worse than the Heat. The Magic, Ben Sherrill's a really nice player. The rest of their, and Wagner's an interesting 2-3. The rest of the roster is not good. They're not a playoff team. Like, they got in because the Heat and Bulls screwed around at the end of the year. To me, I think the Heat and Bulls are better than the Magic. So they got a cakewalk in the first round. They haven't had a tough series, again, in over 5 series. So they sort of just walked through everything, assumed everything's going to be nice and easy. The Knicks aren't that. I mean, the Knicks have a lot of top-tier talent. They're just not that deep. But you saw last night, like, the Celtics thought they were going to walk away with it. We're chucking up threes left and right, which is really stupid because they don't have the height advantage. Like, the Knicks have the height advantage. The Knicks are going to get the rebounds. So when you're just jacking up 3, because usually Derek White will get rebounds and Pritchard. Good luck with those guys in this series. The Knicks have a lot of size, and the Knicks are really long on the perimeter. So the idea that White and Pritchard are going to save them, okay. Like, you saw it last night. White and Pritchard did nothing.
Oh, White was good last night. He had 19 points, 11 boards.
When I watched him, he didn't do anything. So maybe that was the first half, because the second half, he wasn't doing much. And Horford, old man River, like, trying to match him up against Mitchell Robinson, Towns, Anunoby, Bridges, like, the bench that everyone in the league thinks is good, that I think sucks, was on display last night. Like, White is fine, but okay.
I like Derek White as a player. I mean, you're not expecting Derek White to be Michael Jordan, but for the role that he plays, he's better than my man Alex Caruso, who had 20 last night in a losing cause. But yeah, Derek White's he's acquitted himself very well. You don't believe that, Lubie? I wouldn't be disparaging about Derek White. I wouldn't mind having him on my team.
Oh no, I'd love him on my team. He's a good player. I don't know where to put him. Like, they treat him like he's really good, and then he'll have like a 9 or 10 point game. He gives you what you need from a utility standpoint. I don't know. I think the Knicks have a lot more talent than the media and the Boston fans have given them credit. And it's hard for me to say that because I don't put them in the contender status, but I don't think the Celtics are having this walkover that they thought they were going to have. And you saw game 1, they came out, punched in the face, and they withtook the punches, and they were there to the end. And Brunson doesn't die. Like,
you're starting to come around on Brunson, I believe.
I know. Look, I know what he is. I give him credit. I think you saw it in that game. I don't know if he's going to put you over the top. I don't know. Again, the Celtics, I feel, were a little rusty in the second half. They got complacent after they got built a big lead. And look, they missed 45 3. Like, to me, take the threes, fine, but when they're not falling, switch it up. Like, this new world where you just jack up threes regardless, I think it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Like, if the threes aren't falling, go to the basket. Like, you have Tatum, you have Brown, you have Derek White, who actually is pretty.
Got Holiday who could drive it inside.
Go to the basket. Like, they played into the Knicks' hands. The Knicks are going to rebound the basketball. If you're the Knicks have a lot of size. Like, to sit there and chuck threes, assuming you're going to get offensive rebounds. Good luck. That game, I think, was a microcosm of what the Celtics have gotten away with, and I wonder if they switch things up as this series goes on.
All right, Knicks, good performance. Come on big in the second half, rallying from 20 down, which is not uncommon in the NBA anymore, even in the postseason, where you're figuring a team gets up 20, they're going to know how to suppress the opposition enough to at least hang on and win. But those leads have been evaporating like they were nail biters all the way through. Brunson, 29 points. Anunoby comes up big. I know you've been a little bit negative about Anunoby, saying that you're not sure what he is, but a pretty good player in any circumstance. 29 last night. He was excellent. Hart is the guy that kind of instigates a lot of things for the New York Knicks in a positive direction. 14-11. But what's not defined in the statistical data there is the overall floor game that Josh Hart plays. So they got a lot out of him. And Karl Anthony Towns kind of quiet on the scoring front, 14 points, but he does grab 13 boards. So a well-balanced comeback orchestrated by, and you would have to say, sparked by Brunson, who always seems to be the guy that ignites things for the New York Knicks. I like that about him. Brown and Tatum end up with 23 points. Derek White, 19 and 11. Holiday had 16 and little else. I'm sort of with you. I mean, I know Pritchard was named sixth man of the year. Would that look readily apparent to you that this was the sixth man of the year? A very, I think, necessary component of any team is to have that first guy come in. I mean, not exactly Hondo Havlicek is the first guy. And then they have a bunch of nondescript white guys. I mean, I'm surprised. Is Henry Finkel still with us? I'm surprised they didn't dig up Mel Counts and throw him out there. But and not to imply that Boston is a racist city, but is everybody on the bench a white guy on the Boston Celtics? They have one black guy besides Brown, Tatum, and
they have Horford.
Yeah.
And they have three white guys. Cornette, who should not be on a playoff roster. Hauser, who shouldn't be on a playoff roster.
Doogie Howser got hurt in that game, too. I don't know. Does that affect or impact your opinion about the series? I would think somewhat insignificant, but probably not. So we'll see. But the odd thing, I mean, they shoot 15 of 60, 25% from three-point range. But if they make six more of those 60 attempts and end up, or five more of those 60 attempts, they're right on the number for what people, the equation, all of these sabermetric guys and analysts and analytic people would say, well, and it's true. I mean, you can do the simple math. If you shoot 33% from three-point range, it's the equivalent of shooting 50% from the field on two-point attempts, and most people would take 50% shooting. So, I mean, they're five shots. As atrocious as that was, they're five shots, five made baskets away, five rim outs away from sort of being right on the number of the equation that you're looking for. So kind of weird to think about that. But 63s, they miss 45 of them and set a record, an NBA record, all-time record for futility in that category. All right, the other guy. Now, where does that leave you, though? Because I would imagine the Celtics will be heavy favorites again in game number 2. And where does that leave you in the series? I always like those pivotal game 2s because, as we say, every game in the playoffs is pivotal, including game 1. And especially if the road team can establish itself in the first game, as the Knicks did. I mean, you have a freebie, one free swing here, Lubie, coming up.
I mean, the Celtics are going to ring. Look, the Celtics aren't going to shoot like that, and that's their point. Is we shoot enough threes, eventually we're going to hit them. Even if we have a game like that, they won't have another game like that. At least in game 2, they'll shoot better, and I'm sure they'll get even more calls than they already got. So I presume they'll put their elbow on the throat, and they'll probably win game 2, and they may win game 2 going away. I don't know. I think the Knicks' length and the Knicks' ability to defend the perimeter is going to make the three-point shot a lot harder. They're used to getting wide open threes because you have Tatum, you have Brown driving. The Knicks have enough defensive ability. They don't have to double up. If I'm the Knicks, I'm just staying home. Like you put Bridges or Anunoby on Tatum, they can stay with him. Again, great offensive guys are always going to find their way, but they're big, long dudes that are really good defensively. I don't think you have to leave the shooters, and that's what the Celtics rely on a lot, is getting Horford in the corner, getting Pritchard and White open up top. Like, I don't know if that's what's going to happen in this series. So yes, they'll shoot better, but I don't know if they can just rely on jacking up threes. Like, I think the Knicks are going to make it a point to force them off the 3-point line, and we'll see how they adjust. I think game 2 they'll come out bombing and they'll hit. But as the series moves on, like I'm curious how frustrated, because that's their game plan, and you don't want to change your game plan in the middle of in the middle of the playoffs. But the way the Knicks play defense, like it's not like anything we had. Like the NBA is not like that anymore. Like everyone is sort of on defense. The Knicks aren't. The Knicks take defense very. The Knicks put a roster together. Towns isn't the greatest defender. Brunson isn't, but they have a lot of guys around them that are. So it makes them, like, Brunson's not as much of a, like, I guess I don't know if he's working on his defense, but he's not as bad as he was. And Towns, at least, is a big body that if you put another big dude next to him, he can figure it out. I don't know. I'm very curious to see how this series goes, because Celtics fans and the media were very like, oh, it'll be easy. And I'm like, have you watched? The Knicks aren't going to win, I don't think, but it's not going to be a walkover. Like, they're going to push the Celtics.
What's great about it, both of these games that occurred last night, Denver beating Oklahoma City with a buzzer beater, pretty much a buzzer beater. It was close to the very end of the game there by Aaron Gordon, who's now had 2 of those, one a three-pointer, one a dunk off an air ball by Jokic in the previous series. So he's been playing his role perfectly, and you always like to see that when a team is in sync. They know what their role is, which I would say is true of Derek White. I mean, is Derek White going to always be the leading scorer for that team? Occasionally he is, but you're capitulating and going ahead and sacrificing some of your own offensive prowess because you have Brown and Tatum, and they're going to be your go-to guys. You got Porzingis in the lineup as well who can score. So I think Derek White. It's a lot like, I don't know. You remember when Fred VanVleet was with the Toronto Raptors? And you first started seeing him. And I always liked this guy. He was coming off the bench. And I thought, wow, whenever that guy's in the game, he seems to do all the right things. He knows where to put the ball, when to drive, when to make moves on his own, can a couple of threes. And then he emerged as a top-notch player, ended up getting a big fat contract with Houston, which got knocked out of the playoffs in a Game 7 the other day by Golden State, who goes tonight. So a lot of NBA action. Of course, we're going to get to the hockey game here. There was only one game in the NHL last night. It turned out to be a terrific one and involved our local team here in South Florida, the Florida Panthers, who some saw going straight to the Stanley Cup final, including Doug McClain, who was with us on the Conversation Show. And that wasn't a Panther bias necessarily, but that was his legitimate thought process, was that the Panthers come out of the East, and he had them losing to the Stars in the Stanley Cup finals, which is a scenario I didn't necessarily envision, but we'll see if the Stars can make it through to even the next round, as the Stars will be in action tonight. No, they're off tonight, but you do have 2 games on the slate in the NHL. Carolina and Washington, Edmonton and Vegas get their series underway tonight. So we'll see if that prediction comes true, but interesting, too. I don't know what the status is of Stolarz, who was the Panther backup goalie last year, ironically. And he gets conked in the head there, an elbow from Sam Bennett, and has to leave the game in the second period. And this guy Wall comes in, and he was hardly that, as the Panthers got a couple of goals and got back into it 4-3 in the third period before Toronto got a goal to make it 5-3. And then I love the 6-on-5 scramble.
I know you do.
Final. I mean, it's my favorite thing that happens in hockey, and so much is riding on it, including for many people. Now, the over had to be accomplished, I would think, at 8 goals. But how many times are you sweating out the empty netter if you're a bettor and you're betting totals in hockey? Which, if you're betting totals in hockey, is that something that you would think is even remotely predictable, Lubie? There have to be people that are actually good at it, but I would not be one of them. I would have no idea what the hell is going to happen out there, although we are seeing a prolific scoring output from the NHL in the playoffs so far. All right, we're going to come back with more in a moment, because we have Dave Hyde, outstanding columnist for the South Florida Sun-Sentinel. He's going to join us, give us his analysis on what transpired. But a 3-dog night, 1 is the loneliest number. If you had the guts, the chutzpah, to go with all of the underdogs on the money line last night. You had to make yourself a very handsome profit if you pulled a stick out of your pocket, put it down on that, and that would have been one of those deals too, where the guy in the sports book, my usual scenario, goes, "Hey Mo, this guy wants all the underdogs on the money line. How much you want to take?" No limit. Guy just give those guys. The manager never speaks when he comes out from behind, like whatever room that is that they have in the back there, where they probably store all of the money. Does a manager ever come out, or does he just peek out the door and go, "Nah, he's good"? All right, back with more in a moment. Dave Hyde going to join us, always with some very cogent thoughts on what's going on in the sporting world. We'll return with that in a moment. Now that. The time. 8:36. Play the ponies in style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you.
The world, I mean, if my point was ever going to be embellished and going to be proven true, the world has gotten me sugar now.
Grab a bagel and a schmear, plus some Defo and Lubie. Welcome back to the Defo Show.
The show. Good to have you guys with us. Always a pleasure to be with you here on our various outlets, especially Bleacher Brothers. As I said, catch that conversations with Doug McClain. He was absolutely brilliant yesterday, and heck of a lot of fun. Some great analysis and great memories. We welcome to the program right now. And this guy is always exceptional in his commentary and spot on in just about all of his observations. And there's very little that he doesn't take in. He really encompasses the full spectrum and the wide world of sports. We welcome to the program the outstanding columnist, internationally acclaimed. And no doubt, I'm surprised. Dave Hyde, do you have a Pulitzer? Is that one of the many awards and distinctions that you've achieved?
You know, I got the Nobel, but I don't have the Pulitzer yet. But I'm working on it. And if Doug McClain brings great analysis and great memory, don't expect that from me. Okay, he's still the best.
He's great. I didn't realize that he had a long career since his days as the GM there and president of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and he actually was behind the bench and named himself coach for a while. But and it's been like 20 years, and he's been a top broadcaster, where they're very critical, of course, of their hockey analysts. On national Canadian networks, various shows. So he was great to talk to. It's funny, too, because going back and I don't know, what were you immersed in hockey at all? Because remember, the theory was that the only ice that anybody knows about in South Florida when the team first came into existence was at the bottom of a martini glass. But I mean, that may be, that was one of the great, even though it ended up not in victory, as Colorado shut them down, the Avalanche won in 4 games, but didn't it seem like a win for the people here in South Florida, that run, as they mowed down Lindros in Philadelphia? They beat Boston in the first round, and then knocked off Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr of the Pittsburgh Penguins in round 3 to get to the final.
Oh, that was a blast. That was really as fun a ride as I've been on covering sports here. Just from I still remember Tom Fitzgerald and Bill Lindsay circling Mario Lemieux, like during the break before a face-off, just doing circles around him. And Lemieux, I asked him later, and he said Lemieux was saying, "Get away from me, Pee-wees." I mean, there were so many great stories, and Doug McClain was right there in the center of it all, of course, as the coach, and then of course the Panthers took a mighty hiatus of a quarter century of doing nothing, and dropped off the face. They were like melted ice in South Florida, and then they get the one guy that every team needs. That the Dolphins have been looking for their quarter century. The one guy to change the franchise. That was Bill Zito. Came in here and made all the right moves, hired the right coach. And look where they are right now. They got whole nother country mad at them now. Last night, Toronto's now mad at them. So,
all right, well, that was a great start to round 2 of the playoffs. I don't know. Could you have asked for much more? It's always fascinating that nobody pays any attention to the National Hockey League for the 82 games of the regular season, and then you get into round 1 of the playoffs, and I don't know that they could have delivered much more. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday that he was saying, "Oh, geez, and a lot of people come around to this point of view at different times during the postseason. The NBA is pretty boring, and the NHL, wow, you look at the drama and all of the great conclusions to games and the competition and the intensity level, and hockey's really delivering. But then, bang, as Mike Breen would say, we had two of the most incredibly entertaining conclusions to basketball games that we've seen last night. So NBA right on a par there with the NHL so far. I was curious to get your opinion on this because you've probably written about it and thought about it many times, Dave Hyde. As we had a clip at the beginning of the program about why is there this rivalry? Why do people hate in South Florida these New York teams? To the point where even with the Heat being out of it, everybody still seems to be thinking that there's this big rivalry between South Florida and the New York teams. But I don't know. Do you find that still exists? I mean, why do we hate the Jets so much here? The Jets have sucked for years, and unfortunately,
we
the
hate
Dolphins haven't been much.
hate ourselves. We hate ourselves, right? We hate what South Florida is, where all these people like you still come from New York. They come from New York, and they still subscribe to New York papers and still think New York's the center of the universe, right? Isn't that like a part of South Florida? That's your part of South Florida, Defo, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I dropped the New York Post subscription because of very poor delivery. It's not like they're Amazon Prime when it comes to delivering that thing.
Okay. You got this getting the Sun Sentinel now, right?
Haven't been getting the Sun Sentinel, although I was always a big fan, and we love you, but the Sun Sentinel sports section kind of diminished in terms of overall stature because you only have what? You and Winderman, is that it?
Okay, next subject.
Exactly.
But, I mean, like all newspapers, though. I mean, look, we love being in radio, and I spent like 40 years doing radio broadcasts, and I think it was the most creative and interesting and entertaining medium to be a part of. It was much more fun than doing TV for me, and and even streaming. But I mean, look, the industry's dead. I called a couple of people. I offered them up a guy that as a guest that is performing here in town that played with David Bowie, was with Talking Heads. I mean, this guy's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And there was zero interest in talking to this guy on the part of the 2 music stations that I know of that still exist. So that's unfortunately what happened. The corporate people have taken all the creativity out of the business, and I would say much of that probably applies to newspapers too.
You expect me to walk? You want a tour of the cemetery?
You gotta go Scott Kelly on this thing. Don't be afraid.
I came on to talk about the Panthers' great night and great run, and you're making me look inwards at myself and the career of the industry.
Question your own existence. Yeah. No,
I
that's
have no self-awareness of what's going on.
my apologies for that. Just
no, it's a changed world. It is certainly a changed world from, every year it's changing, and we are probably covering less when you look at the papers down here, and we're covering look at the Dolphins coverage is as big as ever because that's what people read. Simple as that. And as you said, like the Panthers regular season, as great a run as they're having, we just can't get readership there. And so Now, come the playoffs, people will start reading about it, so we'll write about it. But I love writing about. I love writing about excellence, and the Panthers are right now an excellent organization, and they're right in the middle of their great run. So I love going out there and talking to them during the season and with what's going on now.
Lubie saw a little moral victory in last night's game. They're down 4-1. They fight back. They get it to 4-3. It became 5-3. They still have a chance. Just under 2 minutes to go. They make it 5-4. They still have the empty net, which they were able to protect, and they had several opportunities there against Wall, who, as we said, was hardly that once he came into the game for Stolarz, who was a Panther last year. What did you see? What were your impressions of the game last night? Where does that leave you in terms of trying to evaluate the series?
Very uncharacteristic game of the Panthers. Not only giving up 2 goals in the first period, and just looking a little, they didn't look like the Panthers. And then they come within 4-3 early in the third period. It's like 15 minutes left. They score 2 goals in the first 5 minutes of the third, and then they take 2 penalties. And again, uncharacteristic, is undisciplined night for the Panthers all around. And of course, the big story in Toronto, and rightfully so, is Bennett's. Call it what you will. A collision, a bump, that
was an atomic elbow in wrestling
of Stolarz. Now, the question is coming out is Stolarz took a puck on the face mask in the first period, and it knocked the face mask his mask off. And was that the start of something? And because the elbow, I mean. I saw it, and it's like a forearm. It is. There's contact, but it's not like it's some violent. We've seen Bennett deliver violent forearms before,
yeah.
And I don't know that was one. The league's going to look at it, but this is going to be the conversation. It didn't take long, did it, for the Panthers to make enemies of everybody in Toronto? About a period and a half.
I don't think Donald Trump was able to establish it that quickly. No, really. And
would have done it.
That was one of the things Doug McLean was saying on our show yesterday here on Bleacher Brothers, that the Prime Minister of Canada needs to impose a giant tariff on the Stanley Cup, which the Canadian people own, and that way it can't leave the country. And that's maybe the only way Toronto can win the Stanley Cup. I mean, you talk about futility.
I was going to say, that's the only way a Canadian team will win, probably, if we'll maintain the cup. I still expect the Panthers to win the series. They're this is a better team than last year. Who they won this. It doesn't mean they'll win the Stanley Cup this year, but you look at their lineup, they're better. They're better, not just for having won the Stanley Cup, but bring Marchand and Seth Jones, and there's two impact players added to your lineup, and so. We'll see where it goes. They are the nasty boy, the McNasties. They really took some hits on Tampa Bay over the line, and it depends on where you're sitting last night. Was that hit on Stolarz over the line? I have to look at it again and see if he really hit him with force with his elbow, because but the point is, there are going to be pitchforks and burning torches circling the Panthers bench in game 2.
But what's interesting, Dave, is that may be a good thing, right? Like I as a fan, I grew up hating when people hated my teams, but a lot of South Floridians didn't. Like, a lot of South Floridians embraced the Canes being the team that everyone hated, right? Like, in hockey, isn't that what wins? Isn't that why they were the President's Trophy champions and lost in the first freaking round? Like, Bill Zito made a concerted effort to be this. He brought in Paul Maurice to coach this. And ever since they've been this, they won a lot. Like, I feel bad for Canada, but if this was their team, they would be doing backflips. They love this brand of hockey. Like, this is what Canadians want in a hockey team.
You definitely need a player who lives on the edge to have that you need a lot of things. You need great skilled players, but absolutely you need in hockey a player on the edge. And the Panthers have almost a roster of them. Is the difference here? Marchand, Bennett, Kachuk, a couple other guys, but so the question, look, if the players play one way in hockey, I get it, but you can't. At least I can't condone intentionally hurting players in any sport. And look, Ekblad did to Hagel the previous. He got suspended twice. Mikula rammed a guy who's on his knees into the board, his head into the board. He got ejected for the game, and rightfully so. Kachuk leveled Gunsel in Tampa Bay, and that was more of a just over the line playoff hockey play. But the point is, yes, the Panthers have this personality, and yes, it's something they embrace because this is who these players are. And so, yeah, I think there is a Canes analogy here to the, when everybody hated them and Jimmy's Canes loved it. So it's probably part of that.
It's funny too. Just a quick thought again, getting back to Doug McLean. Remember, and you probably wrote about this, how we had the greatest assemblage of coaches on our pro teams. And he was laughing about it because he said there was Pat Riley, there was Jimmy Johnson, you had Jimmy Leland, who was Hall of Famer, and then Doug McLean. And he was talking about how they posted everybody's salary, which at the time, this is 30 years ago, so a couple of $1 million salary for a coach was a huge number. And they put everybody's salary up, and there was McLean at $450,000, which I would take that in a heartbeat, wouldn't you? Yes. Although you probably have eclipsed that in many of the years that you've been writing for the Sun Sentinel and the many books and publications you've been a part of. But and he said that his son was getting ripped in school for being the poor kid. But that was a pretty good assemblage of talent there that Doug was a part of, and to even be mentioned in the same breath as those three guys as coaches was quite a compliment. All right. Where do you see it going? I believe that every game in the postseason, whatever sport it is, if you're talking about these best of 7 series, is pivotal. So where does that leave you? Right. Game 2 coming up tomorrow night between Toronto and the Florida Panthers. And is there anything
pivotal? This is a pivotal game. The series will swing on it.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I look. I agree with Lubie. The Panthers came out of the game from a look. They had an awful first period,
horrendous.
Decent second period, and a good third period if you take those stupid penalties out that took away their momentum. But they're fine. They like to get one game in Toronto, make it 1-1, and come home. And but home ice really means nothing in the playoffs, especially with this team. I think for most teams anymore, for whatever reason, the home ice means little. But they won 3 games in Tampa Bay in that series, and that's sort of what they've done on this run. They went on the road, so I don't think the road really matters. It's just you don't want to fall behind 2-0 to anybody. Then you got to win 4 or 5 to win the series, and that's difficult. So, but they played in the third period the way they got back to their game and can take that. Now the question is, do they have Bennett in game 2? That'd be a big loss for them.
Before we let you go, I do want, you talked about excellence, and the Panthers were a joke for 25 years, and now they are a franchise of excellence. The franchise that was the franchise of excellence for 25 years, and I hate saying was in the past tense, but the last couple of years they've sort of fallen on hard times, and now it feels like they're back in flux like they were before they got Jimmy Butler. When you look at the Heat, what are you doing with that franchise? Because the calls for Pat Riley to sit and go, look, he's 80. I still wonder how actually involved he is day to day. And I don't know how much longer, especially with the pop stuff. Like, what is he really? It feels like it's Andy Simon, it's Ellisberg, it's Spo, and Nick Harrison really are the ones doing all the stuff. But obviously, you know a lot more than I do. But when you look at the Heat, I know everyone's calling for them, and they're wondering, and they're curious, and they're scared from a fan standpoint. But they've been in this place sort of before, especially in recent years, and they always find their way out of it. When you do a synopsis on the Heat, not only the season, but where they are now, where are you?
What you just said is how I think they always find their way out of it. Now, will it be this off season? I don't know. You know, they got to have some options, and I look around. Giannis is going to be on the block, but they can't even come close to matching trade offers that other teams can. Do they? You know, Durant seems like he's an option every year. But the larger picture to me is this. They've had 2 down years by their standards. And before that, they went to the NBA Finals twice and the Eastern Conference Finals once in the previous 5 years. So in 7 years, if you sweep it all together, it's a pretty good run for 7 years. And this year got sabotaged by Jimmy leaving and wanting out, and the bizarre standards of the NBA, where a guy with 2 years and $110 million left on his deal can say, "Nah, I'm not going to play if I don't get any more." And so, you know, the impatience of the Heat fans is hilarious right now. I get it, one a good year, one fun. But you're going to run Pat Riley off, and look, you're going to run him off after this run because Jimmy Butler wanted out of town, and now does Pat want to keep going? I don't know. He's like you said, he's 80. I mean, at some point, I still think he is very involved in the day-to-day operations. Okay. But he's got his whole system in place. You know, everybody there has been there for a while and is handpicked by him. So everybody knows the system they're running and the standards they have. But, you know, I imagine Dolphin fans, if they, in the past 7 years, have gone to the Super Bowls twice and the AFC Championship once, and AFC Championship 3 times and the Super Bowl twice. And now you're running off the guy who's brought you 3 titles before that. So I just find the impatience of the Heat fan hilarious. But I hear, well, look how talented Detroit is, and Cleveland, and these are teams that were off the map for 5 and 6 years as they collected lottery picks. So do you want to do that? Is that the road you want to go? The thing I love about the Heat is every year matters to them. Every year they try. There's no tanking. There's no they don't go into the year saying, "Oh yeah, we're not going to be any good." No, the Heat culture to me, and it's become you know joked on for a while, but the Heat culture is simply this: we're going to maximize every year, and the standard is a championship. Yep. But we're not going to throw away seasons. So, you know, I'm not on the let's run off Pat Riley bandwagon.
You mentioned Heat culture. I guess this year it was more like that yogurt that you find in the back of the fridge that you open up and got a green tinge to it that even Louis Pasteur would not put his fingers on. You
take the best player off any team in the NBA, and they're not going to be very good. Okay, that's look at Philadelphia lost Embiid. Their season was a disaster. Dallas, once that trade was made, their season, and there were other things, obviously injuries in Dallas, but their season sank. So I was rooting against Jimmy in round 1 just so there'd be a parallel that he didn't get out of the first round either. But Steph Curry pulled it out.
Yeah, and they're back in action tonight, so we'll see what they can do. Part of the whole syndrome there, where all of the experts were pushing the Lakers, and now they're all over Golden State, thinking that they have a shot. And we did see, I don't know if it was vulnerability last night from Oklahoma City, because I think Denver's a hell of a team, but and they seem to have gotten it together with a late coaching and a general manager departure, and seem to be playing much better basketball. Let me ask you this one parting thing. And when I was a cub reporter out in the Inland Empire of California, I was very close to the Ontario Motor Speedway, which doesn't exist anymore. So I ended up covering some auto racing. They had NASCAR there and some Formula One. Were you, Dave Hyde, as a columnist, forced in any way, or did you feel compelled in any way to take in this Grand Prix race? And what do you make of the phenomenon? Because I just don't get the attraction of the sport. I really don't.
Yeah, I'm not. I remember covering a couple races, and I'd ask, what was the difference between why'd this guy win? And the answer, let's put it in simple terms,
that's the key.
okay? And the answer was always this: he had the better car. That's not my kind of a sport. That's not what I do.
Better equipment, yeah. Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah. So look, I get, I'm not, people who love F1 and all, that's great. That's your thing. But it's just not my thing. It's very weird. There's only 20 racers, 20 drivers, 20 cars in F1, and very odd sport in that regard. But no, not my thing. So, but God bless you if it's yours. That's good.
See, if it was Demolition Derby from the old Wide World of Sports days, I probably would be inclined to watch. I love that at West Islip Speedway on Long Island. That was one of my favorite thank you, Rune Arledge, for bringing that to light for everybody. But I don't get it. I mean, and can you believe the type of crowd that it attracts?
So I used to work for a tow truck company in high school and college.
Okay.
And one of the guys, we would, with old cars, there'd be some old cars again, and we would fashion them into a demolition derby car. And every there was a fair there that had demolition, and one of the guys every year would go in the demolition derby, and you had to put in like extra battery and then really harness it down, and then he'd get the helmet, and he'd put, his number always was 714, because 714 back then was some kind of drug or something. So he'd spray paint 714 on the side of it. It was typically a station wagon or something like that. I guess he wanted size. But it was hilarious. So I'm with you.
Yeah.
Demolition Derby League. I'll be all over that.
That'd be great. Or you could just drive on the Palmetto Expressway. All right, one final thing, Dave, if you don't mind. And I know we're pushing the limits here of your time. You're always very considerate about that. But the Belichick story.
Oh, God.
And have you written about that? I mean, what do you make of this whole thing with the girlfriend?
Even Bill Belichick is not immune to the most expensive real estate in the world, is he? I mean, what has happened to this guy?
No.
He was a leader of strong men and championship thinking, and all of a sudden he looks just like. Is he just too old? I don't know what's going on here.
He's out of the category in terms of the limit of and the parameters of younger women that an older guy should be dating or seeing.
It's kind of creepy, isn't it?
Kind of.
Well, I mean, we had the formula. We came up with it a long time ago.
It's creepy.
If you take your age and divide it by 2 and add 7 years to it, that should be the bottom line, the limit. So a 74-year-old guy should.
Here's my rule for even looking at anybody. Okay, and just like a double take. They have to be closer to my age than my daughter's age. Okay.
Admirable, yes.
24? Are you kidding? I mean, that's like.
It's crazy.
I'm just creeped out by the whole story.
Gross.
All right, and you always can count on our audience, Dave. And I know, it's always good to know who you're talking to. But they right away. I mean, we're getting hammered on the chat line here with the fact that 714 alludes to Quaaludes.
Yeah.
So we're very much in a know.
I said it was a drug. I said it was a drug. I knew it was Quaaludes. I just didn't want to bring a drug from the 70s or 80s. I guess it would have been the 80s back into vogue. So
Yeah, everybody was wandering around like a zombie in the Night of the Living Dead there. All right, Dave, we love you. Any special projects? Anything coming out? Any books? Any movies? And obviously, I need to probably put up that buck now because
Yeah,
I feel somewhat uninformed since I canceled my post subscription. I don't get to read that thing on the throne every morning, and it
yeah.
fill me in on a lot of outside stuff.
Go on Amazon. Go on Amazon, and I got the Jimmy book Swagger with Jimmy Johnson. Or
Oh yeah, how'd that do?
You're tired of the reading about the Dolphins just wandering the wilderness for the quarter century. I did a book Still Perfect on the 72 Dolphins. It's still on Amazon, and
nice.
so that'd be my little personal advertisement on your show, Defo.
There you
I
go.
think that the Jimmy book had to be a windfall for both you and the coach because I was looking at
It was a blast.
Jimmy
It
put
was
a picture of him catching a fish. It wasn't even it was a pretty large dolphin, mahi mahi, and
He caught a blackfin tuna. I think yesterday he posted.
and he gets like
Yeah,
10,000 views. I mean, likes on this just for a picture of him holding up a fish. So I would think people would be curious about getting the inside scoop on all of his thinking and the various things that he experienced. So excellent. And the name of the book again with Jimmy?
Swagger.
Excellent. All right, we love you, Dave Hyde. Thanks so much, and
Thank you.
we always appreciate you taking time to be with us here on the show. Dave Hyde, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so he's confident. Florida Panthers bounce back. You're confident, Lubie. How do you approach a series where you hate both teams in the Celtics?
I'm leaning Knicks. The Celtics have become so obnoxious. Their fans, like this idea that they're this perfect team that can't lose. The Knicks Ken wasn't wrong. Like the Knicks haven't won in forever.
Right.
And I don't see them going that far. So it doesn't hurt me to actually get behind them because I think all they do is bloody up the Celtics for their next opponent. And I'd love to see that. I'd love to see the Celtics not have a walkover. I'd love to see them get pushed and not just shoot 83s and, face teams with no physicality. I like that the Knicks are going to push them. I like that the Knicks are going to make them work. And I like that the Knicks at the end, they come back, then the Celtics come back, they force overtime, and then the Knicks in Boston Garden or whatever the hell it's called. I guess it's the modern Boston Garden.
Center, I think it is.
Like with the refs, with all the nonsense, with Derek White and Tatum and all that garbage, find a way to get that win. Like that was great to go up 1-0 when no one thought they'd go up 1-0. As a Heat fan who can't stand either team, that was fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Can tonight's action possibly replicate or duplicate or in any way resemble what we saw last night in all three games?
Yeah.
That was amazing. Two great basketball games in terms of conclusions and then just a wild affair there in Toronto on the ice. But you have Indiana and Cleveland, pivotal game too.
Yep.
And Golden State starts a series against Minnesota. I'm thinking Minnesota wins this series. Maybe 6 games, maybe even 5. So I could be way off on that. And then on the ice, Edmonton and Vegas. Edmonton, a heavy favorite on the road in this game. And Carolina and Washington was a series. Does anybody give a flying one about that series? Libby, Carolina and Washington.
Washington was the number 1 seed, and Carolina every year is a contender. So you're waiting for the year that they actually can get through these early rounds and make a real run of it. So yeah, that should be a really good. I mean, you have Ovi in it. Any series with Ovechkin in it, because again, it's like LeBron to me. Like it's getting near the end for him. You don't know how long he's going to be there, and you should enjoy these legends while they're there, not always later.
Left side face-off circle, power play, and Ovechkin with the one-timer. Maybe that'll be the difference. But that was a series that Doug McLean in our conversation show said he's probably paying no attention to.
That's so funny.
Had like no appeal to him whatsoever. He would just as soon be, watching a soap opera as watching that. All right, Libby, great job. Thanks to Dave Hyde for joining us. We'll do it again tomorrow. We'll have Tony Segreto. We'll go old school with Tony Segreto, brought to you by Texas Roadhouse Restaurants. For Mike Lubie Lubitz and Dave Hyde, I'm Jeff DeForest, hoping everybody has a terrific day. Looks nice out so far. A little change in the weather here in South Florida. Hope you're having good stuff where you can get outside and just keep moving, people.
Yes.
It's the key to life. Keep moving. Don't get sedentary. Don't just sit on your fanny there and do nothing and eat bonbons all day. So we'll see you tomorrow as we leave you now that.
The time.
People still eat bonbons? It's 9:09.
Let's go to eat a damn snack. Look what they done to my soul.